of our, oh, looks like I just cleared that screen. Hold on, give me a second here. Almost had that right. There we go. Maybe. Oh, there we go. Okay. If I wait long enough, stuff will work the way I expect it to. Perfect. All right. So let's try that again. Welcome today to another training session from another training webinar from Pragmatic Works. Quick introduction for you. My name is Steve Hughes. I'm Director of Consulting. The reason you see Data on Wheels on the screen there, as well as my ugly mug. Just Data on Wheels is how you can get a hold of me in the community. That's my blog site. It's dataonwheels.com. Occasionally you'll see me post something on Twitter at Data on Wheels, and as LinkedIn. If you actually search for Data on Wheels, you'll find me there as well. So if you want to know more about me and my story with Pragmatic Works, or as you know, from even before that, feel free to do it. I wanted to talk about the survey just for a second here. It looked like about 70% of you that responded are already using some cloud services of some kind. And then beyond that, everybody else was split kind of down the middle. 16% haven't started, and 16% were in progress. So I just wanted to say that I'm seeing that be really typical. You know, having cloud services in play could just be Salesforce. I realize that, all the way up to you have no on-premises tooling and you're pretty much all the way in on the cloud. So let's get started here. So a couple things that I want to bring up. So cloud, as we start this off, cloud disrupts our business as usual. If those of you, you know, most of you have either an in-progress state or you are in the cloud, like we're talking about, but you really have to appreciate what's going on when it comes to cloud technologies. And I listed a few things here that we find often in the business, and what we had to deal with it in our transformation as well. But we have to realize that there's a certain amount of trust we have to put in our public cloud vendors, whether that's Microsoft or AWS, or even Google, if you can find trust there. But the point is that you need to understand, you need to understand trust there. The availability changes. Those of you who build applications, have you built applications that can understand the fact that occasionally your connectivity to the internet fails? You know, some of that stuff we just never really thought about because everything was connected to my network. Now I have to think about it differently. What happens when something's not available? Is my system resilient? Can it handle it? And then there's the control factor. The Pragmatic Works audience for years has been included folks like DBAs, which by their very nature are control freaks in most cases, and they should be. They're ultimately responsible for managing data and making sure that it performs well for the organization. So now we have to give up some of that control, and that's all these things that are causing us to disrupt our business and how we handle business and technology. So when we talk about what we're doing, this story, this is how Pragmatic Works went from a SQL Server focused shop to really our services being focused in Azure. And I'm going to walk you through a little bit of our history, and then I'm going to talk about specific things we did to transform our organization, where we landed today, and also some of the things that, how it applies to you. So keep in mind, Pragmatic Works is I'm talking about our consulting organization, our services arm. I realize not every one of you have that type of business. But at the same time, a lot of the same struggles we went through and a lot of the same things that we had to do to transform our business are necessary for you when you try to transform your business to cloud as well. Some things will be more important to you than they were to us, and at the same time, we dealt with things that you wouldn't have to. So let's get started on this story. I always like history and talking about it, so we have to start out when Pragmatic Works. Hopefully, some of you actually remember back in 2007, Brian Knight founding Pragmatic Works, delivering a tool called DTS Exchange. And the opportunity really was focused around what we did with SSIS. If you look at even that, that paragraph there, it's really about those SSIS tools and the add-ons, and this is where Task Factory was born, and some of the other projects and things we were able to do. Yes, we did consulting, we did training around that, but that was really what we started as. We were an SSIS shop focused on a lot of BI tooling and then what could happen as we move forward. Move us forward to 2011. We've expanded a lot more of our capability. So the SQL Server stack has expanded. It's changed. What Microsoft delivered. We're looking at the same thing. How do we actually add more tooling and more products? At this time in our journey as a company, we were embarking on things like blitzes. Some of you may have done some of our blitzes and quick starts and those type of things, packaged up BI solutions to make it more efficient to get you to the cloud and move you there faster. Our goal as an organization was to help make BI a reality for as many organizations as possible. And that was all done with the capabilities in SQL Server at the time, and leveraging our tool set, our experience, and the tools that Microsoft provided to do that. As we keep moving forward, we started to see a little bit of diversity in what we were doing. SharePoint BI became an important part of what we did, as did PowerPivot, as we tried to really embrace collaboration within the Microsoft platform. And here you can see we're talking about, you can see the training on the T's. We were doing a lot of work like that, just making sure that people understood that, even though we knew about the products and things like that, we also were expanding to really introduce people to more things. So now we're up to 2013. 2016, we're almost 9 years old as a company. We're now talking about our influence in the industry and how we change the way people think about the data. Here we introduced something called the data lifecycle optimization. It was this framework was an opportunity for us to have a more holistic conversation with our customers around what their data lifecycle looks like, where are they at in that stage of maturity, what are the things they're trying to do with their data, what matters. So we started this process, and in that stage we started talking about Azure. Azure was kind of young. What were some of the things we could do there? People were still looking at the public cloud as a scary thing, and they're worried about a lot of different things around the public cloud. So that's 2016, but it was kind of the beginning of our journey. We started to see the importance of where Azure was going to play and other cloud tools. Today, we look at the history of our company today. We are a cloud company. We do cloud solutions. And while we still have a love and focus on the data side and the data platform within even Azure, the reality is that this is where we are today. And if you think of this history and timeline, if you were to talk to anybody in our organization, they're going to talk about Azure and how we're trying to help customers take advantage of the cloud and do things. But this was not just an overnight transformation. We didn't just all of a sudden make this switch and say, hey, we grew up in SQL Server, it was awesome. Microsoft is now doing Azure, let's just do Azure. We did not do that. We have a story to tell, and this is what I want to talk about and share our story so that maybe you can learn from it as well. As we compare kind of this history that you just saw, when you look at what we started out as, SQL Server was focused. I often tell people when early on in my career, it was easy. I did SQL Server. And if it was SQL Server integration services, analysis services, reporting services with a data engine or some other tool, it was pretty much all SQL Server. That's what I focused on. And that was true for our company. We focused on data warehousing, BI solutions on SQL Server. That was the target. That changed. Our focus has changed to where we're Azure focused. Now I talk about things like Data Factory, Azure Data Warehouse, Azure SQL Database. But then we get into the other parts that don't have a history in SQL Server, like Databricks and Data Lake and Logic Apps and other tools that are living in Azure. We really, I want to make the point, we haven't abandoned our past. We still do on-premises SQL Server solutions, but it's not our focus. And in order to change our focus, we had to do a number of things to reset our company and do some things that were that shook us up pretty hard to make sure that we got things done so we could actually claim and be a cloud-focused company. So here's some more pieces of our journey. Transforming our company, the people. We are a consulting company. You may not be a consulting company, but we are a consulting company. Our product that we deliver is our people. And in order for us to make the transition, we actually had to retool our personnel. Now, you may say, well, my product is I sell these widgets and I don't need, how does this affect me? The reality is the same thing that affected us greatly. This is a huge impact for us. We had to go out and look at what it would take to retool our personnel. These are great experts, architects that have been building BI solutions for years. A lot of our folks have 15, 20 years of experience working on the SQL Server data platform or equivalent. This was not something to take lightly, nor could we do it quickly. So first of all, for us to start making our move as an Azure company, we realized we had to start working on things. And this was 2 years ago we started. Our focus of the first year in 2017, we had what we called the Summer of Azure. This was an opportunity for us to organize training for our consultants to actually go out and learn more about Azure. Was it truly our 100% focus at the time? No, these folks are, in addition to delivering for our customers what needed to be done, we were expecting them also to go learn this new world of Azure and what the tools and opportunities there were. It's one of those things where some things are just never easy. Change is not easy. Some folks love the transition, some folks didn't. Let's be realistic. And what we really want to be able to let you know about is that, we started with Summer of Azure. This was a training, and we organized it internally. We found training out there we could use and made this happen. So that was 2017. So this started our journey into more and more Azure work. Well, as we came into 2018, we realized we needed to step it up. And what our goal was to get everybody on our team certified in Azure. This became, as we all know, certifications don't mean that you're an expert, but certifications do show expertise. Microsoft has redone the certifications. We put a lot more stock in the certifications, even when we look at resumes for folks coming in today, because certification's not easy. So one of the things that we did was say, hey, go out, get yourself certified, preferably in up to two exams, up to 3 exams. If you're able to chase a major certification, the fun part about Azure certification, I'll warn you right now, is Microsoft changes it quarterly, typically. In some cases, they completely drop exam sets, which is what we're dealing with this year. As we look into next year, we're dealing with certification changes. All this is because the Azure constantly changes, and we're looking at how to keep our folks fresh and learning things. We focus on standard things that we want everybody to know, and we also let them explore new opportunities and certifications and use certifications as a way to learn something new. Beyond that, as we started to prove our expertise, we actually started creating Azure training for Microsoft. If you go out to Azure Data Factory, you're going to find out that we created the labs. The picture below is Josh Owen, one of our consultants. He actually wrote training and labs for Microsoft. We also done the work for Azure Data Warehouse boot camps for our other partners. So some of the partners, you may have been trained on work that we actually did. This is part of our transform our people. So we went from having a few people know something about Azure to having the expertise that allowed us to drive training and grow not just our own organization, but other organizations in the space. So that was a huge key part for us transforming our business, was actually making it available to our people, our consultants, the ability to upgrade their skills and prove their expertise in the industry. But it wasn't just the people. Sales and marketing had to make a shift too. Those of you who have been around us for a long time know that we have over 30 books authored by our team on SQL Server technologies. And my guess is right now, if I were to write a book on Azure, first of all, it would be out of date well before I actually published. And secondly, who would read it? So now we look to the shift, like what do we have to shift to change to prove our ability at the same level, improve our expertise? How do we get our expertise out into the marketplace so people are familiar with who we are? The shift of video by our marketing team was significant. We actually have already produced over 300 videos by our consulting team to date on Azure topics. Some of those are in Azure Everyday. We'll talk more about that in a little bit and how that changes things for us. But Azure Everyday we do a video every day for Azure every business day. We also, like these webinars like I'm doing right now, a lot of them are now focused on Azure and Power BI, a lot of focus there, but a lot of it's cloud-based now. A lot of it is that focus. We also had to move our marketing and sales offerings because, what we used to talk about, didn't apply as much anymore. We had to talk about Azure migrations, and those migrations, just to be clear, are not necessarily traditional migration paths that we had thought about in previous times. We actually look at migrations from Teradata to Azure SQL Data Warehouse, for instance, or Exadata to Azure SQL Data Warehouse. Or maybe you're sitting on an appliance right now and you're looking at moving off of your APS appliance or parallel data warehouse. How can you take advantage of it? So we have all these migrations in place. But not just that, we see people migrating their warehouse solutions. It's a very interesting time in our market. As you start looking at data warehousing, which we've been experts at for years, we've had to retool that to be Azure-based. And as such, we are actually looking at driving a modern data warehousing architecture that is not entirely SQL Server-based, even in Azure. It uses components like Data Factory and Data Lake and Logic Apps, none of which really are components that you see in a SQL stack, even in Azure. Beyond that, we are actually started working towards working on managed services. We have managed service offerings now in play for Azure and Power BI. We're looking at how do we continue to grow our company and transform who we are into a company that's cloud focused. That is another way of doing it. Internal solutions. Not only did we take on the fact that we need to be cloud-based for what we're delivering to the market, we also had to internalize that work. We embraced cloud for our internal solutions. Microsoft 365. We use email, collaboration, workflow, and reporting. A lot of that's all done through there, whether it's using Microsoft Flow, Power Apps. We use Teams. We are a heavy Teams user. One of the things that we embraced early on was Teams to replace Slack and Yammer and other tools that we had in place and just consolidate to Teams. It is a huge transformation for our company, both from a process standpoint to an ease of use standpoint. Now we are more and more using Teams along the way. Obviously, email was one of the first things that had to go up into the cloud, just like anybody else. So we're actively working in Microsoft 365. Azure services came into play too, because like everyone else, we too have custom applications, and we need to move those custom applications. Now we use a mix of tools, just like anybody else will, and we'll tell you straight up that some of our tooling needs to still be updated and optimized for cloud. It's an ongoing process for us to optimize. So this is not one of those things where, ooh, we're done. We're not done. We have more work to do to continue to optimize. We actually eliminated reporting services, I think, end of last year or maybe it was beginning of this year, from our environment, because it got rid of a VM for us and we went all to Power BI. Those are the kind of optimizations that you have to figure out for your organization. Where can you take advantage of software as a service or platform as a service to transform your own company and to be able to leverage an internal solution, leverage solutions on the Azure or Microsoft cloud for what you need. So in our case, this is what we saw. These are the things that we actually moved over. Power BI and Teams are probably two of the most significant implementations that you see there. We actually, and of course, converting all of our applications up. We still have applications running on VMs because we like you can't move everything all at once. So we understand from an internal migration process, something to help you as well to think about is that not everything goes. We're finally all in Azure. We don't run hardly any hybrid scenarios anymore. We do have we may have one or two things that are hybrid still, but for the most part, we're all moved over as well. We're like any other organization. Nothing goes perfectly, but we move everything we can, and we want to, basically do what we do for ourselves. We want to do for other folks as well, and get you moved over into the cloud as well. So transforming your company. Cloud is the future, or is the future today? The future is now. It's an interesting place to be at in this transformational cycle that we have in our organization. As you start looking through what you need to do and to change your company, what is it that's holding you back? I brought up security here because I'm really passionate about the fact that security is typically a political, sometimes a legal issue, but not a technical issue. Those folks who actually taken this seriously and really dug into security, especially working in Azure Cloud, which is where we spend most of our time. Microsoft is very serious about security. And we see this happen in tools such as the introduction of managed instance, which SQL managed instance, which we're seeing being leveraged in the marketplace, is a highly secure version of their platform as a service. Because, I mean, the others weren't as secure? No, there are specific things they wanted to resolve with customers who have specific needs. Those are the kind of things that we're seeing come around. I think Forrester talks about the fact we're past the first wave. We're now into the second wave of cloud adoption. All the early adopters are in play. And now we're starting to see major organizations move their systems. For instance, this year alone, both Chevron and Walmart announced their move to Azure, and Microsoft worked with them to do this and what this means. And so as you start to look at that, the impact that organizations like them have on the industry, these are the companies that you see, you can look at and say, okay, they figured out how to do it. How can we get there as well? Now, I went through pretty quickly some of the things that transformed us for us, but is your team ready? So this is one of those things I want to be really clear on, is our team had to go through a transition. And every company we work with, one of the things that we try to do with them all is to help them understand the technology. You typically will never move to Azure just in one fell swoop. That just doesn't happen. You will live in a hybrid state for a certain period of time, and you'll hear us talk about, let's not make that, we'll talk about things you need to change. We'll say, a typical one is if you want to move your data warehouse to the cloud. So we often talk with folks about moving their data assets onto managed instance or Azure Data Warehouse or Azure SQL DB or something similar. But at the same time, it may not be the right time to move all their ETL. So they may choose to leave their ETL on SSIS, and maybe that goes to VM, so you have minimal impact. It's a very common scenario that we talk about with customers. You have to find that sweet spot for you as well. As you start moving over, you have a number of things to think about. It's not just that we're moving these things over. Is my team ready to take that on? And Pragmatic works as a company. When we serve our customers, one of the ways we do take that seriously is we work to train and work together with your teams for that reason. One of the other things to keep in mind is that it really expands your knowledge base. Remember how I said SQL Server was what I knew before, and now I talk about everything from network security to working with Cosmos DB with document databases and other technologies. I've had to expand, as my team has, our understanding of how these tools fit together in order to find what you need. One of the biggest differences of working in SQL Server versus cloud, for instance, for us has been all of a sudden we went from, we can walk into the customer, they get SQL Server, they install it, we help them use it. Now they're coming to us going, hey, we need to understand how to use cloud, but we need your help getting there. And that has expanded our needs to understand more and more technology. We're actually staffing differently and a number of other things as a result of that. What I also see is DBAs having to go from just being focused on the database itself to understanding more around networking, something they would not have had to deal with before. But it has to do with how things are implemented in the cloud, and you have to expand what you know. So those are the things that you need to be ready to transform in your company like we did. It's going to change, it's going to change your business. It's a good thing. You're going to have opportunities. Right now, I don't have it on here, but when we start talking about opportunities moving forward, positioning yourself in Azure gives you access to advanced analytics and other capabilities that you wouldn't just easily be able to take advantage of if you stayed on premises. So this is an opportunity to transform your company in the future and for future growth as well. Where are we today? This is the fun part. And this is the part I want all of you to look at what happened to our company and think about what it means to change yours. So today we are a Microsoft partner. We're still certified in data platform, but we're certified in cloud platform now, gold, which means we have a proven track record with Microsoft of delivering cloud solutions. The top 0.5% of global partners on Azure, this is a really big deal for us. We have not, because of the change that we went through, our focus and our workload is we stand and are recognized by Microsoft for our workload in Azure. I'm going to drop to the middle one. 80% of our contracts this year are Azure based, up from 10% just 1 year ago. This is proof of our change. It's like anything, right? Not everything we do, we're still doing on-premises SQL, we're still doing on-premise appliances, those kind of things. We still do those workloads. But the bulk of our workload now is focused around Azure. And we will continue to pursue those Azure opportunities because we believe that that's the best opportunity for our customers going forward. And so we want to help customers get onto the platform that makes the most sense for them. As of today, we're about 95% of our consultants are Azure certified. Some of the ones that are not are new, and they're in the process of getting their certification. And so we're looking at getting everybody there. The goal is to have that because that's a stated goal for us. We want our teams to be recognized in the marketplace easily for their Azure expertise, and certification is just one method of being able to do that. I was talking earlier about some of the other things we've done. Since February 1st, we have produced an Azure Everyday video every business day until this week so far. If you go out to pragmaticworks.com, check out our blog, you can get a quick link to our YouTube channel and see that we have been talking about Azure every day since February 1st. And we plan to continue talking about Azure every day. And it's interesting. The more the cloud changes, the more opportunities we have to talk about Azure. So it's pretty straightforward for us to do that. But we've been talking about it. We've been presenting. Our number of our consultants have presented Azure Everyday videos out there. Yeah, they're short snippets. They're easy for you to pick up, easily consumable. They fit the modern version of YouTube videos really well. We have seminars like I'm doing right now, but also we did Azure Data Week. We pushed a lot. We were looking for a few hundred to 1,000. We got over 1,400 registered attendees. We had presenters, including Microsoft was there. A number of big names from Microsoft presented for us, as well as members of our team presented throughout, as well as Pragmatic Works training contributed as well. These events really speak to the change of who we are. Azure Data Week was a 100% online conference. The whole goal was to make it more easily available to everyone. So these are just some of the things that we have won in ways that we have transformed our business today to actually do more. Why should you consider a move to Azure? So we've talked through kind of what we've done, our story, our history. We've come from SQL Server to Azure, and we plan to continue on this journey, and there's a lot of more we can do. But why should you consider a move? So I reached out to some of our consultants and what they see, and even our sales team contributed to some of what people are seeing. And what they really wanted to talk about was platform as a service is a key. If you want to do IaaS or do VMs, you know what, we can help you with that, but really the win is the moment you can move over to platform as a service, because then you can start true optimization of your environment. So not only does it just reduce hardware and software management, because now I don't have to care about those pieces, it also helps you optimize your maintenance operations, but even beyond that, you find opportunities to optimize for cost and for performance to provide needs to deliver for your customers. Azure also helps with scaling, whether it's volumes or needs in your organization. And by needs, I mean you can be looking at something like, I need to do more data science, but I'm not sure how. Well, let's get your data onto the Azure. Let's talk about what it means to get on Azure and then enable data science and get additional workloads for you and your team around that. So, and the other one is modernizing your business and plan for the future. We don't, like I said before, we don't see people just uplift everything and all of a sudden they're in Azure and life is grand. The reality is getting onto Azure is a step. You end up starting hybrid, or you end up starting with a piece or something that you can move easily, and you continue to move your company. That's the process we went through at Pragmatic Works. We didn't get everything on Azure right away, but that was our target. Let's get rid of any servers in-house. Let's do everything we can to move our environment forward. So when you do that, it sets you up for future planning. By that I mean I often use this thing. By helping you move to Azure, we're working to help future-proof what you're doing. Because if you decide to make a change, depending on how you've designed the things, and this is something we want to help our customers, is how do you design solutions and platforms so that you can actually be ready for the future. And with that, I want to kind of wrap up, and then we'll take some questions. I know some questions were raised, but if you're looking to move to Azure, lean on our experience. We've been there. We've worked with other customers already. We're doing this work. We would love to help you modernize your business and take advantage of Azure. We'd like to help you see where the possibilities are and where we can help out. So if you're interested in more about this, please reach out to us at pragmaticworks.com and just have a look at what we have to offer and what we can do more for you in the future. And I hope you understand. You appreciate some of the story. I know it's a little shorter webinar than usual, but hey, this has been a great story to tell. That we want people to know that Pragmatic Works is a cloud company and that we had to go through a journey just as much as you did. So I believe there's questions. So you can give me a hand here. I don't see them myself.
Do you see them? Do you see them on your end?
I'm gonna check here.
If not, I can just read them for you.
Why don't you read them, because it's looking a little small on my end here.
Okay, no problem. It says, what did this do to turn over your personnel? Did you anticipate a higher turnover rate? How did you try to get in front of the turnover? That's from Cassie.
Yeah, so we did expect some turnover, and change always brings turnover. As people who are not interested in either moving to this skill set or are in a position of their career, they're not ready to learn something new, or frankly, maybe they didn't believe. So preparing for that, I came from another organization where I've been through a number of growth cycles and seen the turnover happen. So I worked with our leadership to help with that process, to make sure we had folks ready to come on board. And it's been interesting. I would say the turnover, most of it happened from this perspective last year. This year, we've actually seen a lot of growth in our company. We've had some normal attrition that you see in consulting, but the reality is we've grown our consulting ranks to beyond that, because this transformation has actually helped our organization grow its business. So as a result, we see more and more people coming to work for us.
All right, her next question was, what were the determining factors between Azure versus AWS versus Google?
All right, so in full disclosure, we have been and continue to be a Microsoft partner. And as such, Azure is obviously our primary focus. AWS has been around longer than Azure, for sure. But at the same time, I'm going to give you some personal perspective. Personally, when I talk to customers about this, I have a higher reliance on Microsoft's ability to secure and support an enterprise solution. Frankly, just say they have the track record and history of doing it. AWS has traditionally been IaaS and has done a very good job of it. I know they're doing some platform as a service work as well, and I don't want to discount that. But of the platforms you mentioned, those we considered working more with AWS, but realized that we had to focus as an organization, and we ended up focusing on Azure as a result. We did some AWS work, but a lot of our work has been, frankly, in Azure because of our partnership with Microsoft is so tight. And it will continue to be that way. We don't expect to see that change. The opportunity on the Azure makes a lot of sense. Google, that's an interesting one, because really, if you look at who actually play hardest in the arena, I've said it and I've heard other people say it. Google Cloud Services kind of feels like the Microsoft phone compared to Apple and Android. They're late to the game. They don't have a great story to tell from my perspective. If I'm a company, I look at someone who's had continual data privacy breaches, those kind of things, where they're actually, or they market your data as just part of their business model. I'm not entirely open to that being a great thing, and I can't, in fairness, I never can recommend that. And that's my opinion. I admit it. But right now, if I look at all the things related to what we're doing and what we see in the marketplace, one of the biggest things is security. When I look at security and what am I thinking here? Look at security and compliance. Azure is the best platform, given the amount of work we do with financial services companies and healthcare companies. It just makes a lot of sense for us to stay in Azure, because that's where we're going to be able to best serve our customers and provide them the best solutions. in security and compliance. So that's some of that's very heavily on my opinion, just so you're all aware of that. But we are primarily an Azure shop because, well, we're almost exclusively an Azure shop because we are a Microsoft partner, and we work very closely with Microsoft to help their customers move that way. So, next question.
All right. The next question is, can you talk about the cost changes from going to Azure versus on-premise for your company?
So we're an IT company. So first thing you'll know about any company, if it's what you do, you tend to do it poorly for yourself. And this includes server management, those kind of things. We really didn't staff up for internal server management. So it made a lot of sense for us to go to cloud for all of that. Moving them to Microsoft 365 was a no-brainer. It meant that we were no longer managing Exchange servers, SharePoint servers. When we moved to Power BI, we got out of the reporting services server solutions. Anytime we could actually optimize our internal operations so we could focus on our customers, that was our goal. And that should be the goal for anybody who's looking at their story and what they want to do when you move to the cloud as well, is how can you service your customer better because you move to the cloud? It should be a very real question. And that's even for us, our internal operations, is a very real question to us. And I mentioned Teams. Teams transformed our ability on how we went from sales to delivery. It's one of those. We used it because we thought it was a good idea. It was really early on, and today we're heavily invested in Teams and are using it to do all of our collaboration internally, and we're doing more and more collaboration with our customers using Teams as well.
All right, the next question comes from Rod. Do you have a recommendation for Azure Learning Path, courses, exams, etc.?
So our training organization has started doing some Azure training, so I encourage you always to check out what's there because that training is going to be pretty detailed and sophisticated. However, Azure is a big space, and as a result, we don't have full coverage in our training organization, and even though they're working towards covering more and more. What I would recommend from that perspective is to look at Microsoft Virtual Academy as your first place to go. It's free training available from Microsoft. It's not always up to date with Azure, so always be cautious when you use it. Just try to figure out when it was produced, and a lot of the training will be good. But yeah, it's one of those things, right? So Azure is always changing. Of course, there's the training webinars that we do through Pragmatic works as well. There is an Azure Friday segment that's done through Microsoft. Beyond that, the other coursework that we have seen and used in our organization is we've used Udemy for some courses to help with prep for certifications. And, it's just one of those things where you're going to find things you like and things you don't. The most consistent training out there is probably Microsoft Virtual Academy and ours. Otherwise, you're going to be out there looking for training a variety of places. Keep in mind, like I said, Azure always changes. So you're looking for people you can trust who are always delivering something good and new, and organizations whose focus it is to get you that training.
All right. The next question is from Gary. How do the costs compare? The pushback I get is the monthly cost versus capital investment in on-prem.
Well, and that's a conversation we get to have a lot. And this is really a lot about customers making that decision internally to go to an operational cost as opposed to capital expense. And the biggest issue, this is why I said hybrid usually is the best approach. Because what happens is if you have an investment, let's say you just invested in hardware for your SQL Server platform, and you're like, I don't know if I want to move that to the cloud. You're probably right. What can you move to the cloud? So don't try it all at once. Look at, so SQL Server is a great example. If you want to do, let's say you have a backup solution and you're looking to change it, and you have a requirement to move your backups or to keep backups offsite. Well, why not back up to the cloud? Use that as your entry point. Start understanding what it looks like to back up to the cloud and do that service. If you're using SQL Server, especially 2016 and above, some of that's integrated right in there. It'll back up directly to blob storage for you. So that's what you have to find. Unless a company has made a decision to really move from capital expense to operational, and there are some techniques to do capital expense. I don't have all the details. That's something that your Microsoft account rep can help with too. But there are opportunities there. My point is, start small, get everybody believing, and watch cost reductions across other areas in your business. And eventually, you'll be in a position to move more and more of your assets to the cloud to save money in the long run. But the biggest problem is existing investments, frankly. So.
Let's see if there's any more questions. Okay, one from Jana. Hi, what certification path do you recommend for the SQL Server Data BI ecosystem?
For SQL Server, you're probably following the traditional path of SQL Server certification. And they have like the 473, 475, and you can actually dig into data platform on that side. If you go out to Microsoft Learning, they have some pretty good paths. If you are looking to get Azure certified, you need to start looking at the new Azure certification. It's their A series of exams that they just released I think last month. So that's, like I said, it's a constant moving target. Our team is going to be going through through recertification on the Azure side of the world, using those new AZ exam series like 100, 200, and 300. When you start to go from SQL Server to Azure, the biggest difficulty you're going to have is the fact that there really isn't SQL Server in Azure. It just doesn't. It's not there. The 400 series exams, there's a couple that exist that cross over, so those are good intermediate opportunities. But at the same time, as you start to think through retraining yourself towards Azure, there's a lot more to learn.
All right. The next question is, did you sell any capital equipment in your transformation?
We did not. Most of ours was expiring already, I believe. So we were in a good position to make that transition. Other folks I know have sold their equipment. But that, it really comes down to how much you have. I mean, we didn't have a huge, data center presence inside our data, we just didn't have a lot of servers that made a big difference for us. But yeah, it's definitely something we see customers doing today, finding ways to actually offset their costs and startup costs by offloading that through purchase agreements. Sometimes, a lot of people, if you're leasing, it becomes less of an issue because you basically just get back the equipment on the lease. So.
All right, I believe the last question we have here is, let's see, hold on. How does your personnel keep current with Azure given the changes in the certs and the platform?
That is the trick. I could say it's all secret sauce, but that's not realistic. We use certifications like this next year when we talk about certifications. Part of what I'm doing is focusing with my team to say, hey, what are you interested in doing, and how can we match your certification plan up so that your learning plan matches certifications and you can learn something new about what you're excited about. Some of it is just keeping up to date. We stream we do a lot of following of the Microsoft blogs. We watch the videos ourselves. We actually have a number of internal options for us because this goes back to our partnership with Microsoft. So we have internal training options with Microsoft to update that as well. And frankly, sometimes it's the customer who saw something cool going, hey, what's that? And we go, that's a part of Azure. Let's talk about what that is and work with them to do that. So sometimes we have to learn a little bit on the fly, but that's consulting, so that's not a big deal. But a lot of what it is, our team is, we give our teams prep time to go learn the tech that they need to. They're expected to keep up with their skills as much as possible in the key areas that we are constantly getting work in. So we're still heavy on data work in Azure. So, we're keeping an eye on things that change. I mentioned managed instances with SQL database just released GA like last month, I believe it is. October, so I guess 2 months ago. Um, so, I mean, that came out. Well, that's a game changer for us. So we try to disseminate to our team. Folks on our team will become experts at it, and then they're the ones who, really propagate to the rest of the team what's going on. So, and we also do a lot of. So I mentioned we use Teams. A lot of it's a constant learning cycle. So because we collaborate on teams to answer questions and on site and such, it actually turns into a way of learning. So even if it's not a question you had, if you're following on Teams and you're like, oh, somebody asked a question about Azure Data Factory and security, I'm interested in that. Let me, just read through the process and when people respond, because, we can't know everything. But understanding who knows answers and that collaboration at Pragmatic Works is a huge part of our success. Because when you work with us, you work with our entire team. Everybody's better because we contribute to each other's solutions. Is that it?
Yep, I think that's it. I think that was the last question. Any more questions, guys? Nope, I think that's it.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. I really appreciate it. So if you have other questions, obviously reach out to us, and we'd be glad to help.
Awesome. Thank you, Steve. And as always, guys, you guys will receive a recording tomorrow via email. So if you guys have any questions in between then, and like Steve said, feel free to reach out to us. Thanks so much for joining the webinar. And Steve, thanks so much for hosting. We appreciate it.
No problem. Have a great day, everyone.
You too.